What if I told you that you're not actually tired, that your laziness isn't real, that the lostness you feel is just the disguise your soul wears when it's suffocating? You're not weak, you're not broken, you're not lazy, you're fading, quietly, invisibly, a gradual, relentless erosion of your inner flame, not from failure, but from suppression, from silencing the very voice that once made you feel alive, from rehearsing every version of yourself that the world demanded, until even you forgot who you were underneath it all. Every compromise, every fake smile, every time you swallowed your truth just to keep peace, you didn't just bend, you bled. And now you exist more as a memory than a presence. You're not exhausted from effort, you're exhausted from absence. Absence of authenticity, absence of being seen, absence of the parts of you that used to light up rooms, shatter stillness, and love wildly. And yet here you are, functioning, showing up, smiling, dying, not in a dramatic way, but in the kind that haunts your quiet moments, that tugs at your chest when you're alone, that whispers, "This can't be it," because it's not. It never was. And deep down you know it. Every time you agree just to keep the peace, every time you laugh at what hurts, every time you swallow your truth and wear the version of yourself that makes others more comfortable, you lose a piece of your soul. And the scariest part, you don't even notice it's happening, because you're still showing up. You're still being productive. You're still being praised for your ability to stay quiet and smile. Until one day you wake up and there's nothing left but routine, silence, and this overwhelming emptiness you can't explain. It doesn't shout, it lingers, it waits for you in the moments between tasks, in the pauses, in the sighs you don't even hear anymore. You still function. You wake up, eat, scroll, maybe even laugh, but it feels hollow, distant, like watching someone else live your life. Your days blur. You stare at your phone, reread messages you never send, and wonder why everything feels heavier than it should. Not because you're undisciplined, but because your soul stopped showing up for it. You call it burnout. You joke that you're getting old. You wonder if maybe this is just how adulthood feels. But what if it's none of those things? What if you're just grieving the version of you left behind, the one that danced without fear, the one that cried loudly, the one that dreamed without needing permission, the version of you that wants to come alive, never got a chance to speak? And while you live, a quieter death begins, one where your name is still called, but you don't feel seen. One where you smile, but you don't feel joy. One where your life continued, but you feel more like a character than a creator. You know this feeling. You've carried it through laughter, through milestones, through late nights, filled with distractions that were meant to fill the silence. But that silence speaks louder than the noise around you. And in that silence, there's a grief that doesn't have a name, only weight. It's the weight of everything you never said, every part of you had to hide, every moment you ignored the whisper that said, "This isn't me." And deep down, you know it's not sustainable. But how do you undo a lifetime of pretending? How do you break the silence without breaking everything else around you? How do you begin to tell the truth when you've forgotten what it even sounds like in your own voice? What if your exhaustion isn't from doing too much, but from doing too little of what truly lights you up? What if your sadness is simply suppressed joy, begging to be let out? What if you've been mourning a life that never got permission to fully begin? That ache in your chest, it's not random, it's memory, muscle memory from the parts of you that once felt alive. The quiet envy you feel for people who seem free, that's your soul reminding you that freedom is possible. And the tears that come for no reason, they do have a reason. They're the voice of the real you, finally breaking through the noise. That question is what brought you here. And maybe, just maybe, the answer is waiting inside the part of you that's still alive and listening. From the beginning, the world told you who to be. Helpful, nice, strong, agreeable, quiet, predictable, easy to manage, pleasant to be around, but also strong, stoic, and endlessly patient. Even when you were crumbling inside, even when your spirit was breaking in silence, and so you performed. Because performing earned you safety, security, conditional love that came only when you acted accordingly. Approval that was always just one more sacrifice away. You learned early that pretending felt safer than rejection, that applause often followed submission. You didn't just wear the mask, you learned to craft it perfectly. Your tone, your silence, your laugh, your restraint, your opinions that you shaped based on the room. Your entire presence became a balancing act between invisibility and likability, daily negotiation between who you are and who they needed you to be. Every piece of your performance was applauded while the real you remained hidden. Tucked away in the corners of your soul, you weren't allowed to show. You became fluent in micro-expressions, in shrinking, in pleasing. You anticipated needs before your own even surfaced. You became a translator for everyone's comfort but your own. Carl Jung called it the battle between the persona and the self. The persona is the mask, the version of you that pleases the world. Polished, filtered, socially acceptable, strategic. It's the audition tape you play on loop, hoping someone will finally see through the performance and love the person behind it. The self is the truth, raw, creative, rebellious, alive. It doesn't always say the right thing, but it says the real thing. It moves without permission. It cries when it needs to. It lives without rehearsing. It has messy edges, loud truths, and a beauty that can't be marketed. Every time you choose the mask over the truth, a fracture forms, not dramatic, but constant. A slow drip of disconnection, like a leak in the foundation of who you are. Like a language you used to speak fluently, now forgotten in favor of something that sounds more acceptable. And when your life becomes a performance of acceptance, instead of an expression of authenticity, you feel empty, misaligned. You smile, but the joy doesn't reach your bones. You celebrate, but the moment feels like a scene instead of a memory. You learn to chase relief, not joy. Scrolling, numbing, avoiding silence. Not because you're lazy, but because silence is the only place the truth starts screaming. And that scream is terrifying. Because once it's heard, you can't unhear it. You can't go back to pretending you don't know what's missing. And you start to realize your survival patterns have become your prison. And that truth, you've become someone others need you to be, not someone you recognize. You say yes when you mean no. You smile in rooms where your soul wants to run. You agree with things that make your spirit ache. You've lost track of your preferences because you've been managing expectations instead. You don't make decisions, you make calculations. You're not at peace. You're grieving the self you lost while surviving. The one that used to dance with abandon, who asked questions, who rested without guilt. The one who used to scream in joy or in pain and didn't apologize for it. The one who felt the sun and let it matter, who told the truth before it was edited, who believed life was supposed to feel alive. But what if you could meet them again, not in the past, but here, now in this breath, in this beat? What if all that's required is permission, not from the world, but from you, to return to the parts of yourself that still remember what being alive feels like? To say yes to yourself again, fully, recklessly, honestly. This is not the end of your story. This is the chapter where the page turns. But not just any turn, a sacred pivot, the kind that makes you pause and feel the tremble in your chest. This is where you sense something inside you shifting, not loudly, but deeply. Where the fog begins to lift and you realize that the numbness isn't your natural state. It's the side effect of pretending for too long, of editing yourself to fit into containers that never fit your soul. Where you stop merely existing and begin the slow, sacred process of becoming not the self the world wants, but the one you ache to return to. Where you stop surviving and start remembering the taste of joy, the feeling of wonder, the clarity that comes from listening to your inner voice instead of drowning it out with performance. Where you stop editing yourself to fit inside a life that was never built for the fullness of who you are. And you begin designing a life that finally makes room for the wildness, the quiet, the color, the hunger, the softness, the truth of your being. The first step, name the role you've been playing. Speak it into the space, whisper it, scream it, cry it. The version of me I'm pretending to be is not to criticize it, but to liberate it, to acknowledge its burden, to give that mask a name so it no longer disguises itself as truth. Because when you name the mask, you claim the power to set it down, you disarm the illusion, you begin to see clearly, and when you remove it, even for a breath, a glance, a quiet hour, the real you has space to exhale, to exist without performance, to begin again, gently, without apology. The second step, tell the truth you've been swallowing. Write it, scream it into a pillow, pray it, confess it, let it spill out in pieces, let it shake your ribs. The person you're constantly pleasing, who never asked for your soul. The dream that looks perfect on paper but feels like prison in practice. The belief that if you're not exhausted, you're not worthy. The relationship, habit, or history that's draining you, but you're still calling it home because it's familiar. You don't need another pep talk. You need a reckoning, a sacred confrontation, an honest sit-down with your soul. And honesty, though brutal, is holy. It doesn't coddle. It slices through your practiced denial and lays bare the gap between who you've become and who you truly are. But in that space, raw, exposed, trembling, you'll find direction. The kind that doesn't scream, but beckons. Not clarity, maybe, but truth. And truth is a compass. It never lies, even when it hurts. The third step, do one small thing that feels like you, not the productive, filtered, curated version. The real you, the one who giggles at weird jokes, who stares at the sky, who speaks too passionately, who cries without warning. Draw without purpose, say no without explanation, take a nap in the middle of chaos, wear what feels like freedom, play music that no one else likes, sit in silence and hear your own breath. One choice that honors your spirit, one moment where your nervous system breathes, one sacred pause where no one else's needs come first, where your existence isn't tied to usefulness, but simply to presence. Then, wait. Because life doesn't return in grand gestures, it comes back in fragments, in warmth that wasn't there yesterday, in the song you hum without noticing, in the sense that maybe this moment is enough. That's the beginning, the fragile, unstoppable beginning of a return to the version of you that was buried, not broken, to the child that still lives in your silence, to the wildness beneath the routines, to the artist, the truth teller, the wanderer, to your aliveness. You are not broken, you are not behind, you are not unworthy of restoration. You are the quiet miracle of someone still trying, the rare soul who dared to pause and listen. You were someone who learned to survive. But now, it's time to remember how to live, to speak what hurts, to create what heals, to remember that your breath, your joy, your full expression, they are not luxuries, they are your birthright. They are not rewards for suffering. They are your divine inheritance. Comment below, I'm done pretending. Let this be your sacred rupture. Let this be the moment where your scrolling stops and your soul finally speaks. And if this found you in your silence, your next breath is here where clarity begins and illusion dies, because this is where remembering begins. This is where you come back to life, not in fire, but in truth.